Well, good morning, Cedar Creek Church. I appreciate you joining us for our end of year online service, and I hope that you had a great Christmas. I hope maybe you got to spend some time with family or friends. I hope Santa was good to you. I hope that you're not overwhelmed now, a couple of days after Christmas, with the cleanup and getting ready for the new year. And I'm excited this morning just to spend a little time together as a church family to kind of just refocus and remind ourselves what Christmas is all about, but also just kind of begin to prepare ourselves to head into a new year, into 2025. And certainly in a lot of ways, 2024 was it's just a wild year, strange year, so many things happening. And a lot of unrest. You know, we're thinking about Christmas and the Christmas season as peace on earth, goodwill to men, but so very little of it this past year. We've got war that's been raging in the Ukraine and incredible unrest and war and death and destruction in the Middle East. And then, been a lot of political unrest in our nation. It just seems strange to try to think about and celebrate peace on earth and goodwill to men when there's so little of it around us. And so, we spent the entire month of December looking at this promise, this prophetic promise of a child who would be born, a king, a child king. And as we looked at Isaiah 9:6, we got a character description of what this king who would rule would be. And just as a reminder, Isaiah, writing in the middle of all of the chaos that the nation of Israel was dealing with the Assyrians, and a lot of darkness, a lot of doom, a lot of gloom and despair. And Isaiah begins to point to this hope, this light that is to come, this child. And he says in verse 6, "For to us a child is born, and to us a son is given. And the government will be on his shoulders. He will rule. He will be in control. He will be in charge." And then Isaiah says, "He will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And we spent a lot of time this month kind of drilling down into those names, those character traits that we see in Jesus, in this child of Bethlehem, that he is a wonderful counselor, that he divinely can guide us in life, and that he is the mighty God, right? That God's power, the power of God, is available to fight the toughest battles of our lives. And then just a couple days ago, on Christmas Eve, we talked about Jesus being the Prince of Peace and the peace that comes. But that is not the end of this promise of God through Isaiah. The very next verse, Isaiah 9, verse 7, is what I want to focus on just a little bit this morning. So if you've got a Bible or a Bible app, we're going to be unpacking this Isaiah 9, verse 7. It says, "Of the greatness of his government and peace, there will be no end. And he will reign on David's throne over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever." And then he says, "The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this." See, Isaiah's made a shift from describing the character of the king to describing the character of his kingdom. What the kingdom of God that is ruled over by Christ looks like in our lives, in our world, in the universe. And couple things I want to look at, really just three things that Isaiah reveals to us about God's kingdom. First of all, that it is an unlimited kingdom. It has no boundaries. It has no limits. Isaiah says, "For the greatness of his government and peace, there will be no end." And it's more than just forever from a time standpoint, but there are no limits to where this kingdom goes. This kingdom is worldwide, it's cosmos wide. It's interesting when you look at history, no single kingdom in all of human history has encompassed and ruled over the entire world. Now, some have come close, the Roman Empire, even more recently in history, the Empire of Great Britain. It was said the sun never sets on the kingdom or the empire of Great Britain. But there were still parts of the world where those kingdoms were not in control, where they were not reigning. But Isaiah says, this king, the King of Kings, his kingdom has no limits, no boundaries. I think even back to Genesis, when God promises Abraham that his descendants will inhabit this promised land, and it will be from the great river in Egypt, the Nile, all the way to the Euphrates. And that's the promised land. But it was bound. It had limits. It had boundaries. And that kingdom almost immediately began to shrink. It was only under King David's leadership for a short period of time that the children of the nation of Israel, the children of God, actually had rule over and dominion over that area. It became a shrinking kingdom. But God's kingdom, there's no place on this earth that God's kingdom can't reign and won't reign when Jesus returns. There's no area of darkness. There's no part of this world that is so broken, so much unrest, so damaged. There's no person that's so broken or so damaged that's too far beyond coming under the rule and the reign of the Prince of Peace. He goes on to say that he, talking about this child king, Jesus, he will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom. Now, obviously, that refers to God's promise to King David that his descendant, out of his descendants, a direct descendant, will come the Messiah, the ultimate ruler who will have dominion over everything. And we read in Matthew's gospel right off the bat in the genealogy of Jesus that Jesus is the fulfillment of that prophecy, right? He is of the direct line of David. But then notice he says he's going to establish and uphold it, talking about the kingdom, that Jesus is going to establish and uphold his kingdom with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. Don't miss those two pillars of the kingdom of God. It is a kingdom of justice and it is a kingdom of righteousness. The reality is there's a lot of injustice in our world today. And there's a lot of talk about justice. We talk about social justice, political justice, economic justice. Everybody's looking for justice. But this kingdom that is upheld with justice is way deeper than just temporary equality or temporary, balance of power. It addresses the greatest injustice in the universe. You know what that is? You know what the greatest injustice in the universe is? It's defiance of God. The defiance of God, the desire to be our own God, to define our own life. That is the ultimate injustice. In fact, every other injustice that we see between human beings is the result of defiance of God. And so the promise here, with all that's wrong, with all the injustice around us, that we have a king who is going to establish his kingdom, is establishing it right now with true justice, not just surfacey temporary justice, but true justice. And I think about that, and I think about our call as believers, that we are called to be a part of the kingdom, of helping advance this kingdom that Isaiah describes of light and hope and justice and righteousness, that we as believers, we as a church family, we are to be on the cutting edge of where that kingdom is advancing and moving forward. And that's why as a church, so many of the things we do are focused on bringing hope and light to people who are hurting, who are outcasts, who are marginalized in the culture. right? We're doing our water offering as we do every year in December, right? It's about bringing the justice of just the ability to drink clean water, the ability for your kids not to get sick and die of diseases that are curable with something as simple as filtering the water. We are focused on pushing back against those injustices that exist in our world, but we can't ever forget that the ultimate injustice is that defiance of God. And that's why our kingdom work involves not just meeting physical needs or economic inequalities or any of those things. Yes, we do those, but the ultimate purpose is bringing the gospel to reconcile people with God, right? Helping people find their way back to God. Why? Because that is the ultimate form of justice, right? It does no good to help somebody not get sick from clean water and yet not share the gospel with them so that they might live a little longer. But what happens to them when they die? And so this addressing this ultimate injustice of defiance of, disbelief in, lack of knowledge about who God really is, that's why our greatest call as believers, our greatest call as a church family is to live out the Great Commission, to share the hope, the light of Jesus, what we just celebrated, to share that gospel with people desperately in need, with people who don't know or have never heard or have not responded. In fact, that's why all of the justice work we do as a church, all of it is driven by a desire to be a part of the ultimate justice and righteousness of the hope of the gospel. And then the last thing that Isaiah tells us is this very last line is, how does this get accomplished? How does this kingdom come? And notice what he says. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. It's God doing it, right? It's his zeal. That word zeal is passion. It's passion. It's a heart. That's the driving force, is the heart of God. And the heart of God is a heart of love that saves, that seeks to make right that which is wrong. You know, passion, zeal, it's a powerful tool. You know, I think back in my life and I think about the things that I've seen accomplished by people who were passionate about what they were doing, right? It wasn't just a job. It wasn't just an obligation. They had a burning passion, a fire in their heart to accomplish something. I think about Cedar Creek Church. 30 plus years ago, I think of the passion that existed in our founding pastor, Richard Swift, and those very early first Cedar Creek Church families. They had a passion to reach their community, to reach the unchurched right here in Aiken, and how that passion drove them. Right? And I see some of the great nonprofit organizations that are in our community that are doing incredible work. Why? Because they are passionate about it. Passion accomplishes things, right? But understand, it is ultimately God's passion, God's heart, God's zeal that accomplishes it. See, when we start to think it depends on us, or it's built by us, or we're the ones who are doing it, man, we immediately get off track. But there's also a lot of peace in just recognizing, you know, it's not about us and it doesn't depend on us. All we have to do is just get involved. We're invited to be involved in the work of the kingdom of God. And it doesn't require our performance. And it's just so refreshing to be able to sit back and go, look, you know, I have limits. I don't know if I can do this. I can't do that. I don't have this ability, or I have this background, or this history, or this struggle in my life. Yeah, we all do. But the kingdom of God is being accomplished by the heart, the zeal, the passion, and the power and the strength of our God, the God of the universe. And we're just simply invited to be a part of it. And so as we head into 2025, we have no idea what the year's going to be like, what's going to happen anywhere at any time. We are not even promised tomorrow or the next minute. But if God allows us as a church, as individuals, to be a part of this next year, 2025, my hope, my prayer is that we would gain a focus as a church family on being a part of being in the kingdom work, of advancing the kingdom. We're going to kick off the year this year with an outreach-focused series. The first couple of Sundays that we're back together in January, we're going to talk specifically about how we can advance the kingdom locally, domestically, and globally. And then we're going to spend the rest of January, all of February, and part of March in a very important series that we're calling Belonging. And we're going to really drill down into what it means to truly belong to God's family, to belong to a church family, to see that it's more than just attending services or participating in activities, that belonging to the kingdom, belonging to the family of God, belonging to a church family, it's about a covenant commitment that we make with God and that we make with each other as believers in the Cedar Creek Church family. And so we're going to be looking at that covenant in detail and looking at ways that every one of us can take a next step into belonging to the family of God so that we can be a part of advancing the kingdom of God. I'm so excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. I just want to encourage you as we head into the new year. Have a great new year. Celebrate. Have a great time. But I look forward to being back together as a church family and seeing what God has in store for us next. I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. I'm always so blown away by your hearts, by your passion, by your zeal for the kingdom and your zeal for this Jesus, who is our wonderful counselor, our mighty God, our everlasting Father, and our true Prince of Peace. So peace to you, peace to your family in this new year.